The National Johnson O'Malley Association held its annual conference in Tulsa this week at River Spirit Casino Resort. Ahniwake Rose, the executive director of the National Indian Education Association, talked about what a critical time it is for Indian education.
Native people really need to be advocating right now, especially around education. We're looking at really being under attack in two fronts. The first around appropriations are our budget asks. We are seeing decreases in the budget in the way that we've not seen at least in the past decade, not only around construction, but our basic ISIP dollars, and this is for the Bureau of Indian Education. And we're also seeing decreases in the Department of Education, not as significant, but still we're seeing those cuts. But the second thing that I'm incredibly concerned about is a move to start vouchering our BIE system. We're having a huge conversation in DC right now about ways that both Impact Aid and the Bureau of Indian Education might be turned into a voucher-like program, which would decimate our schools and is a complete eradication of their trust responsibility. So aside from paying attention overall to the way that our systems should be created, it's the fact that we're under attack around our budgets, and our schools would almost be eliminated and closed down if our dollars continue to be slashed in the way that they are.
Former Congressman J.C. gave a keynote address and talked about being in the battle for JOM in Washington for years and how glad he was to be a part of the conference.
Well, I'm Jason honored that Secretary Anderson, Principal Chief Floyd, and Jackie would think enough of me to extend an invitation for me to come and be a part of 3 weeks ago's Oklahoma JOM, and then now the national. So I've had a chance to see some old friends and make some new friends, and at the same time talk about something that my company in Washington and I as a member of Congress was involved in down in the trenches, the Johnson O'Malley effort.
Watts also talked about growing up in Eufaula and being exposed to Native culture and how that's helped him understand why JOM funding is so vital.
When you talk Native American community to J.C. Watts, it's about relationship. I mean, as I've said on many occasions, I talked in my latest book about Perry Anderson, my high school football coach, sowing into my life. Paul Bell, Perry Anderson was full blood Creek Indian. Paul Bell was white. J.C. Watts Sr. was black. So I was in a triangle there that I had no choice but to go out and do it because the message was the same. No excuses, just go do it. And so, but again, when you talk about J.C. Watts in the 60 years that I've lived, I grew up around Native American culture, but the older I got, the more blessed I realized that I was to be able to experience different cultures, but same values. Values of hard work, faith, common sense, sacrifice, just go get it done. Those were the values that I got from red, white, and black in my world.
Watts grew up with Mvskoke Nation Principal Chief James Floyd and Secretary of Education Greg Anderson. Now JOM advocacy brings them together again.
It is somewhat ironic that we're all connected through the JOM, but at the same time, there was a connection long before any of us knew what JOM was.
Both Rose and Watts also weighed in on current situations in Oklahoma, with the schools out and teachers demanding education funding.
Well, NIA made a specific statement in support of the teachers this week. When you look at budget cuts within a state, it's Indian students that are going to be impacted the most. So when Oklahoma started doing things like shortening their school week to 4-day a week, that was Creek country, that was Cherokee country that was being significantly hurt by 4-day a week school weeks. When you look at budget cuts from the state, they also start turning to supplemental funding. So dollars that were specifically meant for Indian kids, like Title VI dollars, then don't become just specific for Indian students to assist their education. They become much needed system-wide dollars to support a school system. So NIA is very much in favor of making sure our schools are funded at the levels they are supposed to be, and that teachers receive the much needed critical funding that they need, because our students deserve nothing better than schools and teachers that are performing and being rewarded at the levels that they need to be.
JOM is an effort that augments public school funding, and right now Oklahoma, we're in the battle of trying to find more resources for education, find more resources to pay our teachers. Well, in an interesting time in Oklahoma, JOM is still chugging along, supplementing public school funding in Oklahoma.